Welcome again to GM Tips. This is GM Rick talking to you again, and I hope you're having a great morning. A little bit of noise in the background. It's either my cat, Cassie, or Sassy. I got two of them, sister hellions. And there's mini GM running around. So just keep that into mind as I talk with you that this may happen. Unfortunately, as a dad and a gamer, this is what I got to do in order to make these videos. So I hope you bear with it. I hope my volume's good for you guys. One of the things I want to talk about today, and I'll take the cover off this, as you can tell, I try to protect my books because they do get dinged up pretty good. But we're going to look at the Occult Adventures, and I know I've talked about it, but instead of just talking about the Occult Adventures, we're going to do a little bit of a dive into one of the core classes that I think is an interesting class and probably very misunderstood. Now, some of you are good readers, so you'll go through and piece this apart pretty well, but I want to talk the Kineticist today. And the Kineticist is an interesting class that they put in there. And there's a picture of a Kineticist, an example. The Kineticist is an interesting class. They give you basically a core of 6 new classes in the Occult Adventures. So one of the things I love about it, and I think in a way they do something that they didn't try to do in D&D, which is try to make a psionic character. This is psychic magic, which comes from the ethereal and the astral planes. I love this concept. Some of you won't, but I do. Because psionic combat was always so friggin' complicated in the D&D books. And I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to enter mind power, but they just made it too complicated, I think, at points to understand. Granted, the Kineticist class can be that way as well. A Kineticist gets a nice, healthy 8-sided die for hit points. They get an interesting amount of starting gold. They only get about 60. But you won't need a lot of stuff. Let's just be honest. The Kineticists themselves are a walking power base, is the best way I can say. They focus on elements. The Kineticist draws their psychic energy from the elemental planes. And you have several planes, and they talk about these. As you're going through and looking at the Kineticist, remember to thumb back and forth to the pages they mention to you. So on page 14, they go through the basic elements for the Kineticists, which are aether. Aether is the stuff that you find on the ethereal plane. Air, airbenders. Earth, fire, water, and then just a general universalist. So they're kind of like the Wizard School of Universalists. They have a universalist when it comes to the Kineticist itself. The Kineticist constitution is a key aspect of a Kineticist. Keep this in mind. The Kineticist draws energy, that type of energy from one of those different schools, into their body to then mold it and shape it into offensive and defensive capabilities. Think of the best movie I can give you, and if you want to see what a real kind of a Hollywood version of a Kineticist is, Mini GM and Cat. Go see Firestarter. Get the video, download the video, watch it, because that truly, I think, encompasses a lot of what a Kineticist can do. And you will see this in there. So in the beginning, they get an elemental focus, and they also get wild talents. Those wild talents are kind of like spells. They're mentioned under page 14 as you go along. Those are the things they'll pick up at the different levels. They don't get a lot, but what they do get, they can work well with. Burn. So Kineticists can just normally, regularly channel the elements, no problem. Okay? Unless they want to beef up their attack. And by doing that, they have to do what's called a burn. A burn is where they take so much energy into their body that it literally burns them out in a way. Now, fortunately, the damage is non-lethal, but it is there. So read about that. And it says, at first level, a Kineticist can overexert herself or himself to channel more power than normal, pushing past the limit of what is safe for their body by accepting burn. Some of the wild talents allow them to accept burn in exchange for a greater effect, while others require them to accept a certain amount of burn to use the talent in any way, shape, or form. So you're going to be using burn. How is burn calculated? Burn is 3 plus the Constitution modifier. Hence, why con is so important when you design this character. I would recommend trying to get a con of 18 that gives you a 7 burn. And you really do want that. Now, they have some more things that will offset burn so that you're not just going, geez, okay, so I can use things about 7 points a day. Now, the other thing about burn is you are damaged by 1 hit point of lethal damage per character level. So if you're a 5th level kineticist, you take 5 points per 1 burn you do. So if you have 7 burn, that's 35 points of non-lethal damage you can take through that day. And this is really important, and the GMs, in my opinion, don't change this because it will allow you to keep some balance when this class is used. This damage cannot be healed in any other way than a night's rest, and that is important. And so when you do this, keep this in mind. Now, the other thing it says is this limit rises to 2 points of burn at 2nd level and an additional 3 points. So the damage, the non-lethal damage keeps going up. Just remember that. Now, kinetic blasts. Those are the blasts that they can send out of their hands or use like a kind of effect to hurt creatures and do damage. And kineticists get this. This is in a 30-foot distance, okay, to begin with. So just keep this in mind, that that's part of that. It will affect, and the key thing that's an advantage is it affects swarms' normal damage. So, against swarms, a kineticist is invaluable. Where swarms will affect and mess with other spellcasters, not so much. Unless the kineticist effect is like a spell in its radius. It affects a radius. Then the swarm gets that effect of saving and not taking as much damage. Gather power, another kineticist ability, which is real key in the beginning. They gather energy into them. Now, this is a standard move action in a round to do this. And what it does is by doing this, it makes just a horrific whooshing, powerful sound. As if, and you play this up because they're going, whoo, and you can see the effect around them. What this does is it reduces the burn effect or cost by 1 point. However, and this for a kineticist player is a real key thing, if you take a full round and then a move action the next round, you can reduce it by up to 3 points of burn value. Now, you can't send it the other way. So, if the cost of the burn is 3 points, the effect you're trying to do, the talent, and you take a full round action and a move action the next round to gather this energy, it costs you 0. However, if the cost is 2 and you do that, it doesn't give you a point back to your burn. It can't go negative. It just sends it to the value to 0 of the cost. That's a huge deal. And yet this is available at 1st level. So if you're willing to sacrifice a little, you're willing to gain a little. Now, infusions. You can infuse your different kinetic talents with... Wait a minute, excuse me, let me reread this. At 1st level, Kineticist gains an infusion wild talent from the deal. Those are infusions that you send into your blasts to help you, or your defenses. Elemental defense. At 2nd level, you gain your element's defense wild talent on page 16. And those can be a lot of different defenses. So you can go with enveloping winds, flesh to stone, force ward, searing flesh, shroud of water. Those can go around you, and they're at 0 burn cost to get them. Now, if you want to infuse these, that's where the burn costs come in. The same with the blasts to a certain level, the offensive side. Elemental overflow. At third level, a kineticist body surges with energy from her own element, whenever she accepts a burn, causing her to glow with a nimbus of what that element is. In addition, they receive a bonus on their attack rolls with kinetic blast equal to the total number of points of burn you currently have, a maximum of +1 per every 3 levels. So say you have 7 burn, okay, and you're at 20th level. You can add a +6 to your attack. Now, if you only have 4, then you only get a +4. But keep that in mind, and it also affects other things. So, a kineticist body becomes more and more suffused with their element. They begin to be more powerful. At 6th level, when they have at least 3 points of burn, a kineticist gains +2 size bonus to the ability score of choice. So it can be strength, dex, con, whatever. And excuse me, to 2 ability scores of their choice. So you gain a chance to ignore the effects of a critical. You also gain, excuse me, read this correctly. That person also, the kineticist, gains a chance to ignore the effects of a critical hit or sneak attack by 5 times the current level number points of burn. So, say you have 6 points of burn. 30% chance you ignore any effects from a critical or from a sneak attack, which is that multiplier of damage. Huge when you're being sneak attacked or flanked. Huge when you've been hit with a critical hit. So just keep that in mind. They bring some things to the table that protect that person because they don't get to wear a lot of armor. They're not a heavy armor. They get light armor, and that's it, and they're easy to hit. So this now allows you to protect your kineticist a little more than a standard spellcaster. And then they go into other things like infusion specialization, where you get to specialize in another infusion, and you just get it at 5th, and then 8th, 11th, 14th, 17th, 20th. You can take the same one or different ones, depending, and each will have different effects. Metakinesis. At 5th level, a kineticist gains the ability to alter the kinetic blast as if a metamagic feat by accepting burn. So now you can infuse them with maximize, other things, but you got to accept the burn to get there. So keep that in mind, but it makes you like a powerful spellcaster. Internal buffer. At 6th level, a kineticist's study of her body, or his body, and the elemental forces that course through it allow them to internally buffer to store more energy. So overnight, you can store extra points that you can use towards the burn, and it defines it out by the level how much that is. So keep that in mind and keep really looking at that so that you don't overdo it. What you don't want to do, GMs and players, is overpower your character. You're powerful enough as a kineticist. Don't overdo it. Really follow the rules, and it makes it kind of fun. Expanded element. At 7th level, a kineticist learns another element to expand their understanding, or a better understanding of their own element. So you get to get better at what you do, and it goes through what that means inside there. Supercharge. At 11th level, when using a gather power as a move action, a kineticist can reduce the total burn cost of a single wild talent by 2 points instead of 1. Okay? So that is really important. That gives you that extra bit of reduction. Composite specialization. At 16th level, a kineticist becomes more adept at creating composite blasts. So you can composite your energies. Better effectiveness by doing that. But it also, the kineticist reduces the burn cost of all composite blasts by 1 point by doing this at 16th level. And then you have the Metakinetic Master. At 19th level, kineticist chooses one type of metakinesis, such as Empower or Quicken. And you can reduce the burn cost by the metakinesis of 1, generally making it 0. And then Omnikinesis. At 20th level, a kineticist transcends the distinction between the different elements and can bend all creation. So you get to use all elements to your will. And by accepting 1 point of burn, you can use any Wild Blast talent, even if you don't know it. That's the power. At 20th level, you are truly a powerful power to be reckoned with. And so, they go through the wild talents as well as the infusions. And the infusions are fun, especially things like disintegrating infusion. I read this to one of my guys the other day. And the burn cost is 4. You got to be level 6 to have it. And it's the Aether Realm. And it says, Fortitude for partial, see the text below. You can use force to rip your targets apart. Against creatures, your kinetic blast deals double its normal amount of damage. Massive infusion there by doing that. But the targets receive a saving throw to reduce the damage to half the blast's normal amount, for a total of 1/4 of the blast's increased damage. Any creature reduced to 0 or fewer hit points of the blast is disintegrated as the spell disintegrate. You can use an infusion blast to destroy objects as well. So keep in mind, you can literally disintegrate things as an Aether. You can do Flurry of Blast, Eruption, Forced Hook, Impale. There's a lot of fun things. Kinetic Whip. And then you got the utility wild talents like Aerial Adaptation, Aerial Evasion, Aether Puppet. So you get a lot of things. This is almost, I hate to say, like a monastic body type of kinetics, but you are learning to bend reality to your will. Fun class, but understand its limitations. Don't go wild, players. Please study this. And I've told my players this. I expect you to study those pages and know your kineticist. Because if I find you're playing games, it won't be a pleasant thing. You got a powerful, powerful, powerful character class in this. However, it has its drawbacks. Just keep in mind, you're an interesting weapon out there. It's on the lines of like a warlock, but better. And I just love what they've done with this. And so, even if you adapt this to D&D and other systems, keep in mind, put the limitations in. Make sure the characters understand there are limits to all things. The kineticists can burn their body up by doing these things and knock themselves, to 0 hit points. So keep that in mind. Hello. And there's Mini GM. So I hope you guys have a great day and really enjoy the kineticist. Take some time,